Actor, comedian, musician, impresario, Stan Stennett is one of the most original and talented performers ever to appear on a Welsh stage.
He heard them bawl, we want no small.
Stan Stennett loves the business and the business loves him. It's a drug, you can't get rid of it. He loves his audiences and his audiences love him. Why should he pack it in?
In a career spanning almost 70 years, he has performed for generations of audiences throughout the world and won the affection of millions.
When I think of Stan, I think of someone who probably gave my father and Ernie the opportunity to become great. I think that that's not putting too big a spin on it, because Eric said that to me.
When you think of all the skills he does, pantomime, songs, music, comedian, all those things, he's got all those strings to his bow, but on top of all that, he is a showman. And once a showman, always a showman.
Stan's lifetime as an entertainer has taken him all over the world, but he's always been a fiercely proud Welshman with firmly fixed roots.
Hi, Stan. How are you?
But here, right?
Lovely to see you.
Come in.
Thanks very much.
Right?
Thank you.
Bit of Welsh there.
Yeah, great.
Inside
Lovely.
there, lovely.
Yeah.
That's it. You must have just come from a funeral, if we were looking good. Yeah.
His wit and humour is as sharp as ever, and the Cardiff home he shares with Betty, his wife of over 60 years, is crammed with souvenirs from an amazing life that began in Glamorgan in the mid-1920s.
Stan, can I ask you first of all about your early childhood? Tell me about the circumstances you were born in, where it was, how you were raised.
Yeah. Well, I was raised in mid-Glamorgan, down in a little place called Rwcilog, near Hulakew and near Brinner, a little farm called T. Robert. But I was born out of wedlock, you see, and my mother was a kennel maid. She worked on the farm and looking after the hounds. But then I immediately was adopted by my grandmother, because things like that were in those days a stigma. I didn't know who my father was, and I didn't want to know. And funnily enough, right up until this week, till my cousin went, bless her, she was about the last one alive who knew who he was.
Very interesting.
And I was going to sort of relent and say, well, I think I'll try and find out who he was. But I missed out on it, because this week she went as well, bless her.
When did showbiz start for you then? Was it very, very early?
I was only about eight and a half. I was able to buy a guitar. I was only about £3 or something like that. I learned enough to be part of a local band, sing a few comedy songs and bits and pieces. So the beginnings of the comedy were there, right in a very early age.
By the time the war started, Stan and his grandmother had moved to Cardiff, where he was already performing with various amateur musical groups.
Can you remember the war starting?
Well, I was in all the papers. I remember the war starting. I was a van boy for Pickford's when the war broke out, but I very quickly became a driver. I mean, I had my test in the morning, and in the afternoon I delivered 5 ton apiece to Treforest. See?
He combined his van driving with a fierce ambition to perform, an ambition that saw Stan, still only 17, auditioning at Cardiff's new theatre for the comedian Tommy Trinder.
He told me he liked it, but he said, trouble is, he said, you look too much like me, because I had a bit of a lantern jaw, you know, like Forsyth and things like that. He said, I'll tell you what, if you go into business, he said, I'll look out for you. If I can help you out any time, come and see me. He said, but I've got nothing at the moment. So I didn't really get anything. I just went back to work and driving and doing evening jobs and so on. But it was on the stage, and I sang this song. Oh, what a wonderful party, lots of joy and fun. But if I miss the last bus home, I'll get absolutely done. Oh, I must have missed the last bus home.
Even being drafted into the army in 1943 couldn't keep Stan from performing.
When I went into the army, I mean, I went in as a recruit. That was it. And right away, I mean, I was looking for ways and means of getting out of guard duty, like we all did. So I became an entertainer in the army. And they used to always advertise for anyone who can do any entertaining, you know, report to such and such. And you became a member of the concert party. And I came out of the army a couple of years later. I was only 22, I think, when I came out. I was brought back for the mob to Newport. And it was whilst I was in Newport, in Gwent, that I entered a talent competition called the Royal Gwent Talent Contest. And I was lucky enough to come first. And I got, all the army station in Newport came along to support me. I couldn't well go wrong, really.
Stan's prize for his success was a guest spot on the national radio comedy series Welsh Rarebit, alongside fellow comedian Harry Seacombe.
Now, Harry and I became the resident comics, right? He'd be on one week, I'd be on another week.
I accept no further responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, Stan Stennett.
An old come walking riding out one dark and windy day. Doubtless top he rested as he went along his way. When coming from Treorchy, some miners he did see, digging at the seam of coal, just for the NCB.
So you'd got a name, Stan, as a musician who could be picked up to play with touring bands and groups and so on.
Yeah, and I had a group called the Harmoniacs. Well, we were like there were 3 boys, and we all had 3 wives, right? 1 each. So when we went away, we went as 6 people.
And Stan's new bride, Betty, wanted to be by his side on tour.
Well, I had to make up my mind, really, whether I was just going to stay home here, which I'm sure is no good in show business. If one's there and one's there, and knowing showgirls as I do, it wouldn't have lasted, you see. So I decided, well, to just travel with him. So we bought a caravan.
During the time that we were on tour, that my eldest son was born, Roger, and that was 61 years ago. Gosh.
I was a week old when I was in my very first theatre. And for virtually all of the 50s and well into the 60s, my life was lived in dressing rooms. I was the original born-in-a-trunk kid. And I would go from week to week with my mum and my dad from one provincial theatre to another to another. And it wasn't until I was, I think it's 7 I was, when the authorities caught up with me and said, this boy must have an education.
Now a husband is what's left of a man after the nerve has been removed.
Whilst the Harmoniacs were on the road, Stan was spotted as a potential star in his own right. He grasped the opportunity with both hands and soon became quite a hit on the variety circuit.
I met Stan, as everyone should meet a terrific comic, from the other side of the footlights in the audience. At the Croydon Empire, my gran used to take me along every Tuesday night. I immediately took to him as a kid because he looked funny. He wore a funny hat, he crossed his eyes, he did funny noises. The gag I can remember him doing the very first time I saw it, was she was a beautiful redhead. No hair, just a red head. And then he did his funny voices and his music.
Variety was a bit of everything. And the people that worked in it, they all had what they call bill matter underneath your name. And then mine was certified insanely funny.
The variety really means a variety of skills. That's what it really means, a variety of skills. So on a variety bill, you'd get about 12 different acts, but they'd all be different. You'd have jugglers, ventriloquists, singers, dancers, all sorts of acts. A variety of skills.
By the late 1940s, Stan was making quite an impact on the variety scene, and the pace was relentless.
You used to do a pantomime, then you had a couple of weeks off, then you did a spring show, which was about 4 weeks or something in Coventry at the Hippodrome. Then you did a couple of weeks off, you had a quick holiday. Then you did a summer show of about 12 to 14 weeks. Then you did maybe had a week or something off while you went away and got a bit of your breath back. Then you did an autumn 2 weeks somewhere, and then you were into pantomime. You see, so that's how it went. You knew exactly where you were. Pantomime, spring show, summer show, pantomime.
Ain't dainty feet like plates of meat.
As the 1950s arrived, Stan, with Betty and his young family in tow, was amongst the legions of variety acts crisscrossing the country to perform 7 days a week.
Railway strikes, weekend hikes, cups of tea at Crewe.
Crewe Station, Crewe, which is the sort of the centre of all the different railway companies' journeys. Sunday morning at Crewe was like a variety artists' club rooms.
People used to meet at Crewe, even if it was only looking out of the window of a train going north. Said, hey, where you going? Glasgow? Oh, I'm off to the Palladium. And so this used to happen regularly.
Memories of you.
This huge variety hall circuit. You must have been running into famous people constantly.
I mean, it was the 50s, early 50s, that I met my great friends, Eric and Ernie, Morecambe and Wise. And we met in pantomime. And we hit it off right away. We had something in common right from the start. From the very morning we met at rehearsal, there was something, there was some chemistry about it that made it work for us.
At that time, Eric and Ernie were literally just a jobbing double act. You know, they were just going around the country doing anything they could do. And they ended up in Sheffield on Stan's bill, and they hadn't met when they got to rehearsals. That's the first time that they met. And apparently, according to Stan and Eric and Ernie, they just hit it off immediately. They were just gagging all the time together. So there was this great friendship immediately. And then what happened, which was amazing, is that then went into the production. So that then they were out trying to outdo each other on the ad-libs all the way through the show. And then, as it was reviewed at the time, they got fantastic reviews. You know, this is why it was so good, was because they were ad-libbing so much, and when did the ad-libs stop and the script begin and all that. And then that led to maybe 3, 4, 5 years further in the 50s of doing these shows.
With reaching the next destination always providing a challenge, Stan found a new and somewhat unusual mode of transport to get him from A to B.
You did something that very, very few people did. You taught yourself to fly.
That's right. Yeah, I got over 4,000 hours in.
So you were, of all of the entertainers, Stan, in lots of ways, you were the most mobile, the most available.
I was, yeah. Yeah, I wasn't the funniest, but I was the most available. I sort of collared the market in my time because when I had the aircraft, I formed the Welsh Air Force. You know, called it the Berks Air Force. Anyone who flew with me was a Burke. It must have been. And I had Tommy Cooper, he was a Burke, Eric Morecambe, Ernie Wise, there was Shirley Bassey, you name them, all the people in show business around that time joined the Berks Air Force, and they were all in my gang.
I remember flying over, I think we took off from Cardiff, and flying over and looking down and seeing Cardiff all and Stan was saying, yes, well, I should just keep your hand on the wheel.
I put the wind up a few in my time because they always felt it was all right for everything. Take them up, just do a few turns, sharp turns, and put a few G's on.
After that, I think it's just, I thought, no, Daddy, no, terra firma, more firmer, less terror.
Stan still flies today and can look back over 50 years of unconventional commuting.
We used to fly, when I was going away on a summer season, we used to fly with the whole family. And boy, what a family. I had a wife, right? I also had 2 sons. We used to take a dog. We had a lovely dog called Scamp. And we used to take the budgie. We had a budgie because he was like a part of the family. And we also had a goldfish. I had one son up the front in the right-hand seat, and being a dual control like this, you know, he was able to take over and I was able to steady anything.
There was one classic journey where all the electrics on the plane failed, including all the electrics that were connected with direction finding. So the only option we had was to drop very low. This is kind of echoes of Second World War hedge hopping, really, and follow railway tracks from A to B. But there was the classic problem at the other end there, which was that the button to put the wheels down was also electrically operated. So I clearly remember us cranking this big handle, which allegedly put the wheels down. So as we came into land, we were staring out to see if there was a shadow on the runway below us that showed we had our wheels down. It was like a prequel to the film Airplane, really, as we flew from A to B to C.
In 1959, Stan was to get his biggest break to date as the compere of the top-rated show on BBC television.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Black and White Minstrel Show.
Though its blacked-up performers and dance routines may seem strange today, the Black and White Minstrel Show was a TV phenomenon in its day, regularly attracting over 18 million viewers.
I was working in Dublin in the Theatre Royal, and George Innes, who was the producer, he was a radio producer as well, actually flew in to Dublin to watch the show and watch me work. And he sort of booked me there and then after he'd seen the show to appear in the Black and White Minstrel Show. And I was with the show for 9 years. I mean, when you see the Black and White Minstrel Show, you see the regimentation which the girls danced in, the movements of it, and the pleasure that it brought to the people that listened. Because if you sat and watched people looking at the show, they were getting pleasure from the show.
Black and White Minstrel Show did reflect variety at that time because you're back to singing, dancing and gagging and people dressing up. Okay, they're making up heavily, you know, with black paint and all the rest of it, but that's not dissimilar to what was happening on the tours, on the stages, and in pantomime particularly. The whole thing was a show, a proper show, and that required much, much dressing up.
Stan did have a terrific break with the Black and White Minstrels, which we were all delighted about. In effect, it was almost like a permanent job. All he did really was his act, and he did some stuff with the minstrels, and being a musical sort of guy, that was fine. He worked with people like George Chisholm and Leslie Crowther and people like that. But basically, Stan did his act.
Performing his own routines in between the minstrels' medleys, Stan was soon a household name.
Hey, Ma. Uh-huh. How about scratching my foot, Ma?
Dollar.
Thank you kindly, Ma.
It's okay.
Now we're here.
Yeah.
How about sing 1, 2 love songs for the folks?
Sure.
Are you ready?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Fire on the mountain, winds blowing, where it go nowhere, let's get going. Shine on, harvest field.
Would you like to come in for a cup of tea and that?
Well, I don't want any tea, but I'll come in.
But Stan wasn't content with being a TV personality. He left the minstrels to stake his future on his own business, Stennett Productions, returning to South Wales to take over the running of the Grand Pavilion Theatre, Porthcawl.
I've been in the business sort of long enough to realise that there is a market in South Wales, and especially a seaside resort, for a show of this kind. We're doing a big minstrel feature in the show. We've got the Curry's Waterfall, which is a terrific spectacle in itself. We're doing quite a few different big scenes in the show. And we've got all these gorgeous girls, the Ballymonfanus. So what more do you want? I don't care if I do lose.
I think Stan was very clever getting involved in the production side and running everything because it gives you control. You know, that's been one of the hard things for comedians, particularly those who came out of the music hall and variety eras. They had very little control. So I think Stan was very clever from the beginning, taking over.
I think he's his own man. He's very much his own man. He knows what he wants, and he won't be told that he's got to go a certain way.
While Stennett Productions serviced his passion for live performance, the attraction of television never disappeared. Stan more than held his own with some serious straight acting roles, including a number of memorable performances in the BBC's peak-time drama series Play for Today.
To hold our heads up high with dignity and be treated as people instead of units of production.
He was a very good actor, Stan. He did Play for Today, he did all these various things, and came up with the goods there. He was a good actor. And people often say with variety, you know, a sort of inspiration or a help as far as straight acting is concerned. Well, it is in a way because it makes you fire out the front. It makes you over the top, if you like, and if you've got the right sort of character, it's terrific.
You know as well as I do, politics is the art of the attainable.
Throughout the 1970s, Stan continued to combine his theatre work with frequent appearances on camera as a jobbing actor. So in 1982, when the Crossroads producers were looking for a new lead character, Stan was happy to oblige.
They were talking about a new character going into the Crossroads Motel Garage. My name was Sid Hooper.
What we don't want and what we're not going to have is people saying we're taking advantage. Okay, so we may be using your money for starters, but I want it entered in here and now, right? That all the money it's going to cost to get this baby off the ground, we're going to have on paper split 3 ways. And me and Mac are going to pay it back out of profits.
Chancer Sid Hooper soon became one of the most popular characters in the show.
People used to stop you in the street, didn't they? And,
They did,
and say, you know, why are you so horrible to Benny?
I used to try and borrow money off him, see? And then the following week, I'd be getting letters from people saying, Sid, you leave Benny's money alone, right? We know where you park your car, and all this threats, real.
But it was Sid's relationship with screen wife Mavis that captured the viewer's imagination. And in 1986, millions tuned in to watch her dramatic exit from the much-loved soap.
Tell me about the famous scene with Mavis, where Mavis is dying.
Well, it was very sad, Kim. I mean, you know, we'd been married for many, many years, according to the script and so on. And there was one time where we were falling out and we couldn't make up. And eventually, on her deathbed, she sort of brought this up. And I was so sorry that I'd been goading her, if you know what I'm saying.
Do you remember how you walked out one day and left me? Remember? How you didn't come back for a long, long time. Sid.
I had to try and get myself into the mood for that. And I was just trying to think of someone that I had lost, you know, and everything, so that's the way I would have felt at the time.
You know what, I really didn't have enough courage to ask you to marry me. You know that? I had to pinch myself to bring myself to asking. What do you think of that, Maeve? Maeve.
Stan spent the 1980s combining soap opera stardom with managing a string of theatres. And when it came to attracting talent to his stage, there were old friends that Stan could always rely upon.
You can't tell a waltz from a tango. And go off.
When Eric Morecambe joined Stan on stage in Tewkesbury in May 1984, it was going to be a memorable night for unexpected reasons.
I remember at the beginning of 1984, I think it was, that Stan had contacted Eric to see if he'd do like a Q&A to cover his life.
And it was about the time when Tommy Cooper actually he died on stage, as you know, in a show. We spent the second half of the show just doing a little bit of chat, like a Parkinson-type interview, you know, talking about the old days, talking about the gags we did and so on. We got talking about Tommy, and Eric said, oh, well, I wouldn't like to go. He said, I wouldn't like to die on stage. He said, I said, just as a quick retort, I said, oh, I've died on stage many times, Eric. Anyway, it was flippant in its own way.
And Stan took him right back over his life. And my mother, she was in the audience, and she said that Eric came up with things that she didn't even know about in his life. It was like this final surge, this blurting everything out about his life, really developing his answers in full.
And we played the entertainer, and Eric went round all the instruments, just doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and so on. Then he went off to his little Bring Me Sunshine dance, and so on.
And just, according to his chauffeur who was in the wings, Mike Fountain, he just sighed and said, oh, thank God that's over, which could have been a reference to his life in a strange, spooky kind of way. And he collapsed and his head hit the floor, and he never really woke up from that. That led to his death later on in the night.
The last 30 years have seen Stennett Productions pantomimes continue to bring joy to thousands. And Stan is still going strong in his 85th year. I'm here at the Dolman Theatre in Newport, where Stan is appearing incredibly in his 67th season of Panto. He's inside, lacing on his trademark hobnail boots in order to play the part of Billy in Red Riding Hood. Good morning, Stan.
Good morning, buddy. How are you doing? Come on, right?
What's the attraction? What has been the attraction of Panto for you?
Well, I felt it was a calling in a way, because, you know, I like entertaining kids especially. And I feel it's a black and white situation with children. They like it or they don't like it. They laugh or they don't laugh. You can't say laugh now and think of it later. Adults tend to be a little more discerning, you know, but children are not.
Which was the first Panto? Can you remember it?
Yes, at the Grand Swansea, with Ozzie Morris, one of the stalwarts in Welsh comedy many years ago. And it was, funny enough, it was Little Red Riding Hood.
Come on, man. Try it again. Just try it once again. Come on.
We have to defeat an evil wolf.
And Stennett Productions remains very much a family business. Youngest son Kerry has never known a Christmas without pantomime. After completing his apprenticeship backstage as a child, he's performed alongside his father for over 40 years.
Of our superhuman powers, we must protect Little Red Riding Hood, thwart the plans of the evil wolf.
I think pantomime means everything to my dad, because he, very early on in his career, started to learn the trade as a pantomime performer. And he made that connection, I think, with the children as well then.
I can't believe he's 85.
Take the roof off.
I think he must be eating something that's not available in the shops. It's amazing.
Well. Hello, Buddy!
Hello, Buddy!
Hello, Buddy!
My father loves the fact that people want to see him, and yes, he loves being in the limelight. He's a real ham. He is an old school variety performer.
I think my father's still performing at the age of 85, A, because he doesn't know what else to do, B, because he loves it, and C, because he still thinks there's stuff left to do.
Have you been good boys and girls since I saw you last?
And purely on the whole longevity of his career, he should be remembered as being a fantastic person who's come out of that ancient era of music halls and variety and kept it alive for us.
Bring me sunshine in your smile. Bring me laughter all the while.
How can I retire? I mean, retire to what? You know, all right, take it easy. Well, I'm taking it easy now, really. No, I don't think I'll be retired. I'd sooner finish in harness, if you like. I don't want to retire at all.
I mean, every year he tells me, I think I've had enough now. And within 3 months, he's planning the next.
May your arms be as warm as the sun from up above. Bring me fun, bring me sunshine, bring me love, bring me love. Bring me fun, bring me sunshine, bring me love. That's for you, Eddie.